Hey, well, brothers, welcome back to Build Together. This is day 207. Today's prompt is, what percentage of the population of your world is literate? So I added a new document called literacy, and I just put in basically every major developed nation in Attovia and a rough percentage in the description, sort of about what literacy and regulation on written word and things like that looks like in that place. Over the last 3 generations, literacy in general in Attovia has increased thanks to both the time of rest being a peaceful era, as well as just the invention of the flame printer and the spread of what is called the scorched word. Cascaria has the most literacy, about 70%. And this is thanks to the fact that they're this very free, open market style economy and system that is very, very jungle esque and crazy. And it is really, really hard to make it at all in Clascaria if you are illiterate. However, if you live in a place that's not very populated, then literacy is not super useful to you. If you're a homesteader, or if you're in a cult, or if you're in a commune of some kind that's out more towards the west of Clascaria, they don't really need literacy. And so that's kind of what that missing 30% is for the most part. And Clascaria has zero regulations on libraries, books, any of that kind of thing. The Zyclister Empire has roughly 60%, but it, funnily enough, has also most of the regulations, almost more than any other nation except for the Ornsire Empire. However, they pride themselves in education and contribute a lot of their budget to that. And so you end up with a lot of people that are very literate in this nation. However, they don't have access to a lot of books that aren't permitted by the table. Now, the Shen dynasty loves freedom, and they incorporate the idea of freedom of information heavily into their government, except the problem is that actually getting access to books and education is uncommon because there's not a lot of welfare programs or really any funding for public services like libraries or free education, and so they don't get nearly as much as they probably should. Now, Zohair, being a theocratic nation, has tons and tons of regulations and legislation about what can and can't be read and printed and distributed. But they also do encourage a lot of general reading programs. They encourage a lot of literacy. So they have about 40% literacy. And this is mostly because in a lot of rural areas, there's just not much they can do about increasing literacy or incentivizing anyone to be increased in their literacy. The Kingdom of Helva actually has a house, the House of Letters, dedicated to trying to increase education, but they get very little funding. So the Kingdom of Helva has about 30% because there are some regulations. It's not very common for there to be any public welfare systems for libraries or education, and so it's just not a lot to derive literacy from. And then Belegul and the Ortsar Emperor both have the least, Belegul being 20% and Ortsar Emperor being 5%, and this is because lots of regulations and lots of classist and caste structures. What percentage of the population in your world is literate? Thanks for building together.